Okay, gang, we had a very spirited conversation last Sunday, and we're going to continue this conversation. But if you're a newbie, don't let that slow you down at all. Most weeks we have somebody who's been there, who's coming for the first time. So we love to have new folks in there. So please join us. So you can see in the text below some things about the conversation that we had last week. But the thing that I want to particularly share for you in anticipation of this coming conversation and sort of building upon what we did last Sunday was that the notion of complexity, and in particular it's distinguishing it from chaos. So a little interactive thing here. I want you to in your mind imagine yourself in a space and time and activity. It was one I actually was privileged to participate in, and it'd be great if we could get together and do it, but with the pandemic that's not going to be possible. So I want you to just imagine that you're in a large room seated with about 30 people in a circle, only in a circle, no empty seats. It's a beautiful day, beautiful sun outside. We're looking out on a beautiful scene, and we're connected with each other, having gotten to know each other for a while. This is a part of a conference that I was in a few years back. It was an exercise that we did. And we're going to be given a series of tasks here, and I want you to, in your awareness, in your imagination, do these tasks. So you're sitting there in this circle. And the first instruction is to select any two people in the circle, excluding yourself. That's simple. You can do that, right? So pick any two people. Don't let them know who they are. You know, you're just kind of looking around and you see two people, and you imagine selecting these two people. All right. Second task is construct a line that is made up of all of the points within the circle that are equidistant between these two people. Okay, now this gets a little complicated, and if you remember geometry, there's at least a couple of ways to do this. One is to, in your mind, imagine a line between these two people, find the midpoint on that line, and construct a perpendicular that runs through the circle. Or what you can do is you can find any 2 points in the circle that are equidistant from them and draw a line between them. So there are two ways to solve this problem. There's a series of steps to either one, so it's a bit more complicated. Okay, now the task is to stand anywhere on the line that you have just constructed of all of the points that are equidistant between these two people. And imagine yourself doing that. What happens? You're not the only one who's been given the instruction. Now, everyone in the circle gets up and begins to move, including the two people that you've just selected. So the line that's equidistant between them begins to move as they begin to move. And you're going to move to any point on that line as it moves. Now, it is also true that somebody selected you. So you're moving, so their line is moving. And the result is chaos. Right? Simple is selecting two people. Anybody can do that. Complicated is constructing the line. Complex is standing on that line. And chaos is the reality that we all live in all the time. Right? Because we live in reality, we want to try to think about the world in the simplest way possible. Albert Einstein taught us that whenever you're solving a problem, pick the simplest solution possible, but no simpler. Recognizing, of course, that some solutions to problems are too simple to actually solve them. If the problem is, what bus do I take to get somewhere? That's fairly simple, deciding which bus it's going to be. It may be complicated for me to actually get to the bus and pay the fare and get to where I want to go. There may be a whole series of steps there. Complicated is a whole series of steps. But if I do all of the steps in the right order with sufficient competence, I will the desired result will arise. right? Baking a cake is a series of steps. Each of the steps has to be done well enough and in the right order. And if you do that, you're going to get a cake. Complex is not catching the bus. It's designing the bus system. It's designing how it is that we're going to get everybody in the city who wants to get anywhere in the city to where they want to go in a way that's timely at a price that everybody can afford. Right? And the thing is that where we need to go changes, and so there are different traffic patterns and density of traffic at different times, and it's a continually changing system. It's dynamic. And the reality of the world is that it's dynamic. It keeps changing all of the time. In fact, it is so dynamic that it is chaotic. Now, as it turns out, chaos is not as chaotic as we imagine it to be. There actually are patterns in the chaos. And to the degree to which we can observe these patterns, we can then begin to understand the complexity that exists and set up ways of being that are maybe complicated, but they make our lives simpler. Our capacity to see the world in simple terms is just a matter of being conscious. As we become more competent, we discover that there's certain complicated things that we need to do. But if we're really going to master our world, we have to understand the complexity that is inherent there. And that capacity to think in terms that take into account that complexity is something we call wisdom. And when we can see that complexity and relate to it in such a way that we know what path to take, our lives become much simpler. The irony here is that the wiser we are, that is, the more we can take into account the complexity of reality, the simpler our lives become. And we become more mature, which is also one of the themes that we touched on last Sunday. So as we try to become more mature, we're going to have to grapple with complexity. And the complexity, our capacity to think about that, arises out of the things that are not working for us. Oops, this isn't working for me. I'm going to have to adopt a way of thinking about reality that takes into account the inherent complexity that's there. So that's what we're doing in this whole process of transformation as we move towards our goal, where it is we're headed on this pilgrimage together. And so I hope you can join us as we continue this Sunday evening. All right.